Life as a pioneer student. The good, the touch, and the transformation. The beginning no one prepares you for. They called us pioneers. The word sounded powerful when the school administration used it. The first set. The foundation. The ones who would make history. But no one told us pioneers bleed first. My name is Mireya Collins, and I was 19 years old when I became a pioneer student at Redwood International College. A new institution built on ambition, promises, and unfinished walls. I didn't know then that this place would break me before it rebuilt me. Dreams built on empty land. The campus looked impressive from the outside. Fresh paint, tall gates, bold banners announcing a new era of excellence. But inside, classrooms still smelled of cement. Libraries had more chairs than books. Rules changed weekly. We were told to be patient. You are pioneers, the dean said during orientation. You will shape the culture. What he didn't say was that we would also absorb the chaos. I was proud to be there. My parents were proud too. This school will give you advantage, my mother said. You'll stand out. I didn't realize standing out also meant standing alone. The good days. The first weeks felt magical. We bonded quickly because we had no choice. No senior students to guide us. No examples to follow. We became family. Late-night study groups. Laughing over cafeteria food that tasted like experiments. Dreaming out loud about the future. There was Jonah, loud and protective. Rhea, brilliant but quiet. Caleb, always smiling, always helpful. And then there was Dr. Hartwell, EDHE mentor. Dr. Elias Hartwell was young for a lecturer. Confident, charismatic, sharp suits. The kind of man students trusted instantly. He taught foundations of leadership, a course every pioneer student had to take. You are special, he told us. You are not like regular students. We believed him. I believed him more than I should have. The attention. At first, his attention felt harmless. Extra feedback on assignments. Encouragement after class. Comments like, you have potential. I worked hard. I wanted to prove I deserved to be there. When he offered mentorship sessions, I accepted. Everyone did. But slowly, it stopped feeling equal. The first time it happened, I questioned myself. He leaned closer than necessary while explaining a concept. His hand brushed my shoulder. Too long. I froze. He smiled like nothing happened. Relax, he said lightly. You're tense. I laughed awkwardly. I told myself I was imagining things. Pioneers were expected to be resilient. The touches continued. A hand on my lower back. Fingers lingering when passing papers. Private comments disguised as jokes. I noticed it wasn't just me. But no one spoke. Because we were pioneers. Because the school was new. Because complaining felt like betrayal. One evening, after a long mentoring session, Dr. Hartwell said, You know, Mireya, students like you don't come around often. His voice was low. The office door was closed. My chest tightened. I smiled weakly. Thank you, sir. He stepped closer. I stepped back. And that was when I understood something terrible. This wasn't mentorship. This was power. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed everything. What if I was wrong? What if I misinterpreted it? What if speaking ruined everything? Pioneer students didn't have history to protect them. We were replaceable. The next week, Rhea didn't show up to class. Then Jonah whispered. She withdrew. No explanation. No goodbye. Just gone. Something inside me shifted. I wasn't special. I was targeted. And suddenly, every compliment felt like a warning. Every closed door felt dangerous. Every silence felt loud. I could stay quiet, graduate, pretend, or I could do something pioneers are rarely remembered for. I could tell the truth. And I had no idea how expensive that truth would be. After Rhea disappeared, nothing felt the same. Every lecture hall felt smaller. Every corridor felt watched. Every smile from authority felt rehearsed. Dr. Hartwell continued teaching as if nothing had happened. He joked. He praised students. He talked about ethics. And every time he said the word integrity, my stomach twisted. I avoided eye contact, sat farther away, chose seats near exits. Still, his gaze found me. One afternoon, Jonah caught up with me outside the library. "You should be careful," he said quietly. "Careful of what?" I asked. He hesitated. "Hartwell." My breath caught. What about him? Jonah looked around. People talk, but no one writes anything down. That sentence haunted me. I decided to speak. Not loudly, but officially. I requested a meeting with the Student Affairs office. The woman across the desk smiled professionally. "Redwood is committed to student safety," she said. I told her everything. She nodded, took notes, asked calm questions. Then she said something that crushed me. "Do you have evidence?" I shook my head. She sighed softly. "We must be careful with reputations." That was the moment I learned something important. Institutions protect themselves first. After that meeting, things changed. Dr. Hartwell became distant, cold. My grades dropped subtly. Comments like "lacks focus" appeared on assignments. I was being punished, quietly, strategically, and no one said it out loud. One evening, I stayed late in the study wing. I thought everyone had left. I was wrong. Dr. Hartwell appeared in the hallway. "You've been avoiding me," he said. I froze. "I'm busy," I replied. He smiled, not kindly. "You should be careful, Mireya. People who misunderstand situations can damage their own futures." That wasn't advice. It was a threat. That night, I cried until my chest hurt. Not because of what he did, but because of what I was becoming. Silent, smaller, afraid. Pioneers weren't supposed to feel this way. Unexpectedly, Caleb reached out. "Can we talk?" he asked. We sat outside, under dim campus lights. He told me his sister had experienced something similar at another school. "She stayed quiet," he said. "It destroyed her." That was the first time I felt seen. Slowly, quietly, others opened up. Not publicly, privately. Whispers, late-night messages, tears in dorm rooms. I wasn't alone. We weren't alone. And suddenly, silence felt heavier than risk. Caleb had an idea. "Document everything," he said. "Dates, words, patterns." I started writing. Every interaction, every comment, every change. Not for revenge, for survival. Still, fear lingered. What if nothing happened? What if we were expelled? What if our futures were erased? Being a pioneer meant there was no precedent, no protection, no guarantee. During a leadership seminar, Dr. Hartwell said, "True leaders endure discomfort for the greater good." He looked directly at me. The room laughed. I felt something harden inside my chest. That was the moment I stopped being afraid. We weren't students anymore. We were witnesses. We prepared statements, saved messages, recorded patterns, quietly, carefully. Revenge didn't start with anger. It started with evidence. Some students backed out. Fear won. I didn't judge them, because courage isn't equal for everyone. But I stayed, and staying cost me sleep, peace, and innocence. We sent a joint letter, not to the school, to the board, external, unignorable. We signed our names. I trembled when I hit send. Days passed, then weeks. Nothing happened, until suddenly, everything did. The email that changed everything. The email arrived at 6:14 a.m. Subject line, confidential, review initiated. My hands shook as I opened it. The board acknowledged receipt of our letter. They confirmed an independent review. They warned us not to discuss the matter publicly. That last part felt less like guidance and more like a muzzle. Still, for the first time in months, I felt something close to hope. Words spread fast. Not the truth, but the tension. Lecturers avoided eye contact. Security increased. Administrators smiled too much. Dr. Hartwell stopped teaching for personal reasons. Officially, nothing was wrong. Unofficially, everything was burning. I was called in for questioning. A neutral office. 2 external investigators. A recorder on the table. They asked me to start from the beginning. So I did. Every touch. Every comment. Every warning disguised as advice. Halfway through, my voice cracked. I didn't stop. Because pioneers don't stop halfway through the truth. 2 days later, my scholarship status was under review. No explanation. Just a notice. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. They weren't investigating anymore. They were threatening. Jonah was suspended for academic misconduct. Caleb's research position was revoked. Students began withdrawing, not because they were guilty, but because they were tired. Fear works faster than justice. I started losing weight, sleep, focus. But something else grew stronger. Resolve. One night, alone in my room, I collapsed. Not dramatically, quietly. Sobs into a pillow, nails digging into my palms. I whispered, "Was this worth it?" Silence answered. Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You're not alone. Keep going." I never found out who sent it, but it saved me. Someone leaked the investigation. Not names. Patterns. The story broke online under a headline that didn't mention Redwood, but everyone knew. Former students came forward. Different years. Same behavior. Dr. Hartwell wasn't a misunderstanding. He was a habit. Redwood released a statement. Carefully worded. Vague. Defensive. They promised internal reforms. They denied negligence. They never said sorry. That silence spoke louder than guilt. Dr. Hartwell resigned. Not fired. Resigned. That word felt like theft. But it wasn't the end. Because resignation doesn't erase records. The board called a public hearing. Not for drama. For control. I testified again. This time the room was full. Press. Faculty. Students. I didn't cry. I spoke clearly. Truth doesn't need volume. When I finished, the room was silent. Not uncomfortable. Reverent. That was when I realized. They couldn't silence us anymore. The story had outgrown them. Redwood lost accreditation reviews. Funding paused. Administrators resigned quietly. Dr. Hartwell's name disappeared from academic circles. Not erased. Remembered. That was the revenge. Not destruction. Exposure. I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty. Because justice doesn't give back what trauma takes. But it gives something else. Space to breathe. I graduated. Not proudly. Honestly. I wasn't the same student who arrived with hope and ignorance. I was sharper. Stronger. Unafraid of authority. Pioneers don't just build roads. They absorb the wounds so others don't have to. And yes, pioneers bleed first. But they also change the land forever. What we left behind. The silence after the storm. When everything finally ended, the quiet felt unfamiliar. No emails. No hearings. No fear. Just space. I thought justice would feel loud. Victorious. Satisfying. Explosive. Instead, it felt like standing in an empty room after a fire had burned itself out. The damage was done. The truth was known. And now, we had to live with what remained. Graduation day came without celebration. I wore my gown like armor. Some people looked at me with admiration, others with discomfort, a few with resentment. Being a pioneer meant I would never be anonymous again. I had become a reference point, and reference points don't get to disappear. Courage doesn't end when the fight ends. It follows you. Into interviews. Into friendships. Into quiet moments where you wonder if life would have been easier if you stayed silent. I lost opportunities. Not openly. Subtly. Emails that went unanswered. Doors that closed politely. Truth has a cost. And I paid it slowly. For a long time, I couldn't sleep through the night. Dreams of hallways with no exits. Doors that wouldn't open. Voices calling my name from behind locked rooms. Trauma doesn't leave when justice arrives. It waits for quiet. Therapy helped. So did time. So did learning to forgive myself for surviving. 2 years after graduation, an email arrived. Subject, thank you. It was from a student I had never met. She wrote that Redwood had changed its reporting system, that faculty training was now mandatory, that she felt safe speaking up because she had heard my story. I cried, not from pain, from purpose. Jonah transferred schools and became an advocate for student rights. Caleb went into law. Rhea reached out years later. She said she wasn't ready to speak back then, but she was now. We weren't broken. We were transformed. I heard about Dr. Hartwell once, through a whisper. He wasn't teaching anymore. Couldn't get licensed. Couldn't outrun his record. He became careful, quiet, small. That was justice. Not humiliation. Accountability. The revenge no one expects. Revenge isn't always watching someone fall. Sometimes it's watching them never rise again. Not because you pushed, but because you removed the lies that held them up. I didn't ruin his life. I told the truth. And truth has weight. I went on to work in policy, then education reform, then advocacy. Not because I wanted power, but because I understood systems. And systems change when witnesses refuse silence. I didn't become fearless. I became brave with fear. Pioneers don't get protection. They get resistance. They don't get applause. They get scars. But they change what comes after. And that matters more than comfort. The final lesson. If you are listening to this and thinking, that could never be me. I thought that too. If you are thinking, I should stay quiet. So did everyone before me. And if you are thinking, it's too late. It never is. What we built, Redwood International College, still stands. But it stands differently now. Policies exist because we bled. Safeguards exist because we spoke. Boundaries exist because we refuse silence. That is what pioneers do. They don't just arrive first. They make sure others arrive safer. They called us pioneers because we were first. But now I know the truth. We weren't pioneers because we arrived early. We were pioneers because we stayed, stood, and told the truth when silence was easier.